Well, look at us. How fancy is this? Amanda, welcome to the show.
Hi.
What do you think? We got all these new graphics and audio and video. This is pretty great.
Yeah, it's great. I like the new countdown music. I like the shiny new graphics. It all looks really good. It's so nice to see something refreshed and updated. Although I feel kind of matchy with the border. I always wear my Alexa blues.
Yeah,
so
we're gonna have to think wardrobe next. These are all next steps. Well, for all of you that are here, welcome. We'd love your thoughts on the new graphics and video and whatever. It's nice to change it up once in a while, and I was glad that we could do that. In all seriousness, though, the new intro is going to include things like new call-outs and helpful information every single month, so hopefully you'll see some updates and some new things maybe you haven't seen before. And I definitely want to thank our creative studio team here at Alexa for helping us get all this stuff together. It was a lot of work. We've been working on this for a long time. And I'm really glad that we're finally in this place. So very exciting.
Yeah, it's great. What I like about it is that we're going to be able to update it with like more up to the minute messages about what's going on. So we're not going to see like outdated call outs in there anymore. It's just nice to refresh. But every time we're going to have something a little bit new and just telling you what's in the works. Which, speaking of, we actually have a couple Tech Talks coming up we want you to be aware of. Our next Tech Talk is coming out tomorrow on our YouTube channel. It's all about our new product for radio stations, the Radio Skills Kit. We have project managers Angel Morvant and Julian Smith hosting a webinar. So they're going to give us all the details about that tomorrow on YouTube.
Cool.
We also have another Tech Talk happening at the end of April, and that one's going to be hosted by our very own Jeff Blankenburg. So he's going to be showing a Developer Tools 101. And you can check out more details. We're going to post the link to the DevTools Tech Talk coming up right now in the chat. And be sure to add that to your calendar. It's 10 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday, April 26th. So it's 1 p.m. our time.
Awesome. And the announcements keep flowing here. So, Amanda, we also launched a new course on Alexa Learning Lab called Skill Building Basics. And I believe this is something that you worked pretty hard on. So in this course, you're going to be able to use the Alexa Skills Kit developer console to create a simple custom skill. You follow step-by-step instructions, learn the steps, and then use your hand-on experience to build your own skill. So especially for those of you that may not have a ton of experience with this is a really great way to kind of get familiar with the tools and learn how to get started. So if you haven't gone to our Alexa Learning Lab before, you can actually go to our trainings and workshops page. And I think we have a link coming up here in the chat that'll cover on that. But the trainings and workshop page covers not only things like Learning Lab, but all of the other kinds of resources we have for people to get started.
Thank you for posting all those links in the chat. It's wonderful. I did actually work on the 101, although Jeff did help a little bit with some of the code. We did a lot of questions about, since you did that video series, how you have a helper function in there. People have been asking, where is that? So now it's actually in our documentation. It's actually in that Alexa Skills
Sweet
101. So anybody who needs another, like how to get the helper function to help them parse all their input, that's a really useful thing to have. So we wanted to be sure to include that. But it also just talks about how to set up your intents, how to set up slots, and stuff that you might need to know when you're developing a skill. Good refresher for people who are a little more advanced. You know, obviously, if somebody has never developed a skill before, point them that direction. It'll give them a great place to start. I'm happy with the work we did. There's just like so much going on. Oh, and one last mention for next week, we're going to have Chris Sabaggio again joining us from the games team. And we're going to be focusing on using third-party game tools to build for Alexa. So come prepared with your questions about game development. It's an area of much focus for me. So I'm really excited to have Chris back on the show.
Yeah, man, I'm actually curious. When we say third-party game tools, can you give us a preview of what you think those tools are? I mean, I can't imagine we're talking about Unreal Engine or something like that. So,
well, I'll give you a slight preview in that I dug through the some of the stuff that we have on GitHub. And we're using Twine in some cases, which is a interactive fiction. And we're also using Inkle. I think he's using Inkle Writer, which is another interactive fiction development program. I'm super into interactive fiction, so I definitely want to write some IF for Alexa at some point. So I'm looking to hear what he has to say and like get started. I've actually been talking to other game developers about like their different IF tools that they like to use. So I think it'll be a really cool discussion talking about that.
And then there was one other question about your course that you created on the Learning Lab. Is it in Python or Node?
Right now it's in Node, but if there's a lot of demand for Python, I'd be happy to do a Python version as well. I actually started developing the basic skill in Python, and they said, well, let's stick to Node for now. So I've got I've got a half and half. If you would like to see a Python course, please leave that feedback directly on the course, because that helps us like figure out what to do next.
Yeah.
So you can take the course, you can skim through it, and then if you have like any feedback you want to leave for us about it, good, bad, neutral, whatever it is, let us know if you want to see more courses like that. That'd be great. I personally like to code in Python, so I would be happy to do a Python.
Yeah, that's one of the awesome parts about having Amanda on this team, is that I have pretty specifically gone the Node route, and bringing her in here as a knowledgeable Python developer is awesome, because now we have somebody that can contribute on that side of the house. So it's Amanda, it's really great to have you here. It's been what, 8-9 months now?
I know. I started in June, so
yeah,
getting up
man,
on my
we're
year.
coming up on a year pretty fast.
I know.
Man,
I was just looking at my records today. You know, it's tax season,
right?
So when did I get hired at Amazon?
There was one other question that came in. Will you guys be at Project Voice in Chattanooga?
Yes.
Yes, we will.
Fact, we will be at Project Voice in Chattanooga. Both of us will be.
Yeah, you generally see both me and Amanda here on office hours, but we have a third partner in crime. His name is Emerson Sklar, and he's primarily focused on things like Alexa Custom Assistant and Smart Home and a lot of the other smart property stuff. So he doesn't show up here on office hours very often, although we have had him. But he will also be there. He's actually doing a fireside chat with the organizer of Project Voice. And so, I'm very much looking forward to another trip to Chattanooga. That's always a good event.
Can I make one more announcement while we're still chatting on announcements?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I want to let you all know that we have a group of folks called the Alexa Champions. It's one of the programs that I help manage here at Amazon, and we have actually added a few more people to the Alexa Champions. Those bios and updates are going to trickle in as the week progresses, as I get them in my inbox. But we have Brian and Craig both in the chat today. They've been added to the champions. So if we could link the Alexa Champions website and we just show off everybody's smiling faces, we're really proud to have y'all be part of the team, so to speak, and to have joined us. It was a process, but you're terrific to have in the chat. We always love your feedback and updates and info, and we're going to be chatting further as the time goes on, but I wanted to announce that today on the show. So thank you so much.
For sure. Congrats to the new champions and the returning champions. It's always an exciting time.
Mm-hmm.
And Amanda, thank you to you. I know that kind of taking over a program that has been owned by many different people over time is a lot of extra work to kind of figure out how does this all fit together and what's the history of it and how do I make sure that this moves forward properly. You've done a fantastic job. So thank you to you as well.
Thanks, Jeff. It's really been fun. I really got to meet a lot of cool people, and I'm really excited to meet some folks on the ground in Chattanooga and wherever we end up. We'll be on the road sometimes, right. So we'll definitely see y'all.
Right. Well, you guys may have noticed we haven't kicked over to like a guest or somebody that we want to have an interview with this morning, and that's because this week, and we mentioned this last week, this week is dedicated exclusively to the questions that come from all of you. And so we're here to have a conversation with all of you. We have about 51 minutes left, according to my clock. And so if there's anything you want to talk about, let's do it. This is the place. And as always, I'll add some conditions to that. We generally don't talk about roadmaps. So if you really want to know, like, hey, when is this feature going to be available? I will talk about it, but we probably can't give you any information that you wouldn't already know. And, future looking stuff is often very challenging. We have a lot of rules here about what we can and can't talk about. And so as Data-Driven Skills just found, that's a really good example of a question. The question is, when will Alexa be using GPT? So that's a bigger question, and part of it leans on our roadmap, which I certainly can't talk about. But I will tell you that today there are skills that are in the skills store that are using generative text behind the scenes, whoever that happens to be, and you can use LLMs behind the scenes, right? There's nothing really stopping you from that, especially because when you go through certification, and this is a little bit of insider knowledge or info, I guess. When you publish a skill, certification goes through and they look at your interaction model, the model for your skill, and then it points to a backend system. But that backend system could be on any server anywhere in the world. The certification team does not have the ability to look at that code and see what's going on under the covers. So if you're using an LLM and you want to use an LLM inside your skill, you can do that. Just understand that if the LLM breaks any of the certification rules or guidelines, that's for the same reason that any other skill would be denied from certification. That's possible for you as well. But no one really knows whether you're using an LLM behind the scenes or not. And so if you want to build that into your skills, I'd be very interested to know what your applications are or how you guys are doing it. So make sure that you are certainly giving credit to where your content is coming from, as Trey last mentioned. But there's nothing that is necessarily preventing you from doing that as long as you're following all of the other certification guidelines. So that is that. That's about the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, that's a pretty good answer, Jeff. I thought that was pretty thorough.
Thanks. One of the other ways that I found that has been very effective is the idea of using an LLM to generate content that is fit into your skill the normal way. I have many skills that I've built, and you guys have seen them over time, where I generally have a database of strings that my skill uses for specific conditions and cases. I have preached over and over that you shouldn't just have one version of a welcome message or of a goodbye or any of those kinds of things. You should have dozens. And so an LLM is really good at saying, hey, here's this sentence. Give me 10 versions of that sentence. And then I just plop all of those versions into my database. That works really well also. So hopefully those are some good guidance on how you could think about incorporating LLMs into what you're doing with Alexa. Thanks.
And Puma points out too, another challenge with GPT is that response may exceed the 8-second rule. That is true. The one thing people often talk about the miraculous responses that come out of these, but they are a little bit slow. They do take a little while to generate the answer. And sometimes when you see a video of somebody interacting with one, it's selectively edited to make sure that you don't, that 8-second latency, because they are a little bit slow. So keep that in mind if you're using that. Sometimes they're quick. I've interacted where it's been fast, but other times it can drag. Yep. So yeah.
And really spend some time experimenting, because I saw this and I retweeted somebody that mentioned this, but I'll summarize. When we talk about LLMs, you have to think about them as a technology that is giving you a representative sample of what the next thing in a conversation should be. It's not validating against whether it's true or false or accurate or not. It's just saying this is something someone might say based on what was just said. And that can be challenging, not only for the people that are trying to interact with the service, but if you're presenting that as text. One of the things that I find frequently is there's a lot of misunderstandings on the web about what an LLM really produces. And people are treating it as if it's a search engine or it's an authority on a subject. They are not. They are not authorities. And in fact, the traditional model that we use, using natural language understanding, is a way to make sure that your service and your code are actually providing honest, true answers. Now, that's not to take anything away from LLMs. I think that they're doing a ton of amazing things in a number of arenas. But it's an important aspect to keep in mind that it is only trying to do its job in giving you an example of something someone might say based on the previous prompt. So make sure you keep that in mind.
One question on YouTube, LLM, it stands for large language model.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Type of AI generator. AI generator. People interchange GPT and LLM, but GPT is an LLM. It's not the only. It's like saying all squares are circles, right? It's one of the subsets of LLMs that there are.
Right. It's like saying Blistex when you mean lip balm.
It's a brand, yeah, basically.
Right.
GPT is a brand, but it's a type of text generator, which is a large language model that scrapes the internet for text and then auto completes based on that large volume of text that it has scraped.
Correct.
Basically it's autocomplete with a lot of extra steps, I guess is one way of putting it, which is really great for some use cases. I'm seeing some conversations in the chat, like we're using it for recipe summary. Yeah, summarizing is one of the things it's fairly good at, I think. We had a question earlier up on Twitch from RobotX5. How can I test CanFulfillIntent request? That seems like a Jeff question.
It is a Jeff question. It's probably more a Brian Tarbox question, honestly, based on the time he has spent on CanFulfill and fallback intent and a few others. But I will take this. How can you test the CanFulfillIntent request? I don't know that there is a solid answer for you on this. So the trick, and let me give everybody a definition if you haven't played with this. The CanFulfillIntent request is meant. This is metadata that goes on top of your skill. That says, hey, I can answer questions about these subjects, or these specific topics. These are the kinds of things that I can do. And this includes specific functions, like being able to print, right? So there are skills that talk directly to printers. And so there was a great one a while back where you could just ask the skill, like, print me a picture of a unicorn. And this was great. Like it only used Google image search for finding line drawings, which is one of the selective drop downs you can choose when you're doing image searching on Google. And so you could say, print me a picture of a unicorn, and it would go out and it would find a picture of a unicorn on Google image search, the line drawing version, and then it would communicate with your printer using whatever printer skill you had enabled, and that's where this CanFulfill comes into play. And then out of your printer would come a coloring picture, basically, that you could then hand to your kid and let them color in the unicorn or whatever. That's one example of how this CanFulfill can be used, is that your skill says, hey, I just need a skill that can print. Or not your skill, but a skill says, hey, I need a skill that can print. And then you build a skill that says, hey, I can fulfill requests that need printing. Or I can fulfill recipes, or I can fulfill restaurant reservations, or there's a whole collection of the kinds of things that you can fulfill. And so I don't believe that there's a way that you can test that other than just talking to your device and seeing what happens. But you should be able to see, I believe there's a registry. It might only be CLI based, but I believe there's a registry where you can see, like, what is the list of all of the possible skills that can fulfill in specific categories. So A. Witters has provided tech docs on the CanFulfillIntent. So I think it's a really good idea to dig deep on that stuff. But as far as testing goes, I don't know that I have any specific guidance for you on that specific subject. I just don't think that there is a way to test that effectively, which is probably not the answer you're looking for either. Okay. TradeLess says that there were some good discussions on the community Slack about progressive responses for the 8-second latency as we talk about talking with LLMs. And so this is my opportunity to do a quick commercial about Slack. Slack, it's not just what's for breakfast anymore. No, the idea behind our Slack, for those of you that may not have discovered it already, is that you can go there and you can join and you can talk with thousands of other Alexa developers that are in our community, ask them questions about how to do or what to do or best practices or whatever it may be. And you'll find that there is a passionate group of people there that are helping and answering your questions and making sure that you're headed in the right direction. And it might just be, hey, you want to read this article, or hey, here's a tech doc that'll give you some guidance. But it's real human interaction that helps you solve some of the roadblocks you might run into. So please, if you haven't already, I highly recommend just join Slack. And then when you need it, you have it and you can dive in there. A very, very useful tool.
And I want to shout out to Andy as well. He just sent me his bio for the Champions page this morning, so I haven't had a chance to upload it yet. But Andy was also coming to the Champions today. So thank you for being in the chat today.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a late addition to the bios, so I don't have it up yet. Printing case is interesting, but last time I used it was it. I was late. You sent it to me this morning. I haven't had time, but I'll get it up as soon as I can, probably tomorrow.
All right.
What other questions do we have?
Well, RoboTX5 said that they've used an LLM to make content, but never directly to the user. So I think they're following the model I do, which is I use it to generate content, put that in a database, and then I use that to serve up that content in the future.
I like that model because you can generate the text that you want, but you still give the user like a predictable response, which means you can like fact check what you're sending them, which is nice.
One of the other things I'd be interested to know people's thoughts on this. If you are building a skill that uses an LLM to serve your content directly to your user, how do you think about or how do you approach situations like using APL or in-skill purchasing? Because I've spent only about a hot minute thinking about this, but it feels like that would be incredibly challenging because I can't predict what the response is going to be. And so I don't know if this is the time that I should be trying to sell someone something or what I should put on the screen. And so for those of you that have done this or are playing with this, I'm curious your thoughts on how you want to address those things, or maybe you're just not, which is okay too. I'm always curious to know what's going through the minds of developers as new technology emerges. So any thoughts you have on there would be great in the chat.
What other question? Brian Tabak says the printing case is interesting, but last time I looked, it was a real subset of printers that were supported. Yeah, that's possibly true.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've got one of those HPs that drains the ink after about 3 prints, and you have to go replace the ink.
Yeah, and what's nice is they make the printers cheaper than the ink, so it's easier just to buy another printer.
Buy a new printer, and you get a free ink cart. Then you just throw away the. Oh my gosh. Hater Driven Skills asks, what are the use cases for LLMs in Alexa? Well, I think we talked about one, which is the use case of taking the LLM and using it to generate text, which you then supply in a custom response, which I think is the best case personally. But we think other folks have also used it like as an API call directly, where you have to be careful about that because you don't know what kind of responses you're going to get. So it's different for certification, but you can use it as an API call.
Yeah, as people mentioned, though, you have to be careful of that 8-second limit because it can take longer than that, especially for a longer response. So you need to become quite the prompt engineer to make sure that you're feeding the right kinds of requests in that are going to be concise. Because I've made requests to LLMs where you get paragraphs and paragraphs of text that would not be ideal in a voice-based experience for sure.
Yeah, I was talking to another interactive fiction developer, and she said, it's kind of annoying if the skill talks for too long before you can actually put in input. And there's a real balance there, I think, when you're trying to author content. If the skill is kind of just talking and talking and talking, at some point, I think you start to tune out what it's saying, right? So you have to be sure that you're asking for user input at a reasonable amount of rate. And I think that's a balance you have to strike, especially if you're trying to write like an interactive story, which is something that, I'm very interested in that aspect of it. I've played a lot of interactive stories on it. There's a couple that I really, really like that are kind of classics. And when you're working with IF, in some cases, if they're like an older IF story, you kind of already have to know what you're going to say before you say it, because you're used to interacting with these games in a particular way, like go east, go west, and all that other kind of stuff. And those are already kind of pre-canned responses, because a lot of times in the older stories, they don't tell you what your options are, and you just have to think about what you could say. And that's a challenge for beginners with like IF. I say IF, it's interactive fiction. But with Alexa skills, they might not necessarily know what options are available to them to speak out loud to the skill. So you have to give them their options, and you have to set the stage, and you have to paint a picture, and you have to do all that in a fairly short amount of time. Because if they're not paying attention, they'll start to forget what it was you were talking about. So there's a lot of like design challenges there. And I think with the large language models, they have a tendency to babble on a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's something you have to be careful of, I think.
For sure. All right. Completely changing the subject. Jalwork asked the question on Twitch. It would be great if my Alexa device could Bluetooth to other devices. While I agree with you, and it depends on the Alexa device, they all have incoming Bluetooth, right? So you can pair your phone, you can pair other Bluetooth sources to your device. But I am in 100% agreement with you, Jalwork. There are times where I want to take my Echo device and I want it to Bluetooth to some other speaker system or to some other set of speakers. And so in that case, I'm not aware of a way to do that. And I know I've provided that feedback in the past to our hardware team. I think it's just a software thing. I think that the fact that it already has a Bluetooth radio in it, it should be able to send or receive. I don't know enough about hardware to be confident in that answer, but I'm pretty sure that that's how it works. And so, yes, I completely agree with you. And I'd be interested to know what kind of applications you're looking at. Because one of the other options is you could find on some reseller market like eBay or something like that. We used to make a great device called the Echo Input. I still use one regularly in the summer. And it's think of the Echo Dot, like the original one, like the hockey puck looking device, except it's only about, I don't know, 1/4 inch thick. And it doesn't have any speakers on it at all, but it is an Echo otherwise. And so you have to either Bluetooth or wire it in to an audio system, and then you have an Echo. And they sold, I mean, they were $15, $20. They were very inexpensive. The other option is that I believe Echo Dots, at least earlier iterations of them, did Bluetooth to other systems. But if you're looking at doing this into like a soundbar or some other nicer speaker system you have in your house, take a look at the soundbar or the hardware that you have. A lot of them are compatible with Alexa, and may have ways where you can feed whatever audio you wanted your Echo to play directly into itself. So again, I'm speaking out of pocket here. I don't know what system you're using or how you're using it, but that's something to consider as well. But I know folks that have things like Sonos and Sony and a few other brands. You can choose to make that the source of audio from like your phone, right? And so you Bluetooth your phone to that thing, and then you treat your phone like the Echo. There's lots of options there, but I don't know your specific use case. RoboTX wants to know if anybody's going to Microsoft Build. That is not an event I'm going to this year.
I'm not going to Microsoft Build, no.
Although I've always really enjoyed Build. I think there's a lot of good developer coolness to find, and I have to imagine this year, with all their engagement with OpenAI, there's probably going to be even more.
Could be really interesting. Let us know if you go. Give us a trip report.
Always curious to hear what's going on there. Aztec Consulting says, I have a record player Bluetooth connected to one of my Echo devices. Can I stream that audio to my other devices, or can I develop a skill to stream the content to my other Echo devices?
Directly from your record player.
So
I don't know.
You have it connected to one specific device, but what you want is the audio coming out of all of your devices. While there is obviously ways to do that, if we take the record player part of your story out, and just to give you guys an example, I have all of the devices in my house in one group called Everywhere. And so you can say, play my music everywhere, or play this album or this artist or whatever. But I'm using some streaming service to get all the audio.
Okay.
That works remarkably well. It synchronizes it across all my devices, and everything works in a beautiful, harmonious way. Like, it's really one of those wow moments every time I show somebody. They just can't believe that it's that easy. But when you're providing the audio input, I don't think so. At least I'm not aware of one. And Aztec, I totally get where you're going. Like, you want to play this Bluetooth source everywhere. I think that's harder today. And let me explain to you, this is my, this is like, feel like we need like a little drop down that says like, this is Jeff's opinion, because I'm not representing Amazon on this. But today the devices themselves don't really talk to each other. They talk to the cloud. And so any changes or information or anything that shows up on any of those devices is based on the fact that they're talking to the cloud somewhere. So I think the piece that's missing, and the reason that what you're asking for is impossible, is because you would need, in the current architecture, you would need your record player's input to go into one Echo, out to the cloud, and then down to all of your other Echoes. And my suspicion is there's nobody paying for that capability, right? That's a lot of audio streaming out of your house that no one is covering the cost for. That being said, if you wanted to build it yourself, you probably could.
Yeah.
Here's the way I'm thinking about this. You wouldn't have to publish the skill, but you could build a skill that does streaming audio. That's a thing you can do today. What you would need to do is hook up your record player. Instead of Bluetoothing it to something, you would hook it up to a network device that transmits the audio, which it should be pretty, I mean, you could do that with a Raspberry Pi. It wouldn't be very expensive, but you should be able to take the audio that's coming out of your record player and broadcast it to some kind of CDN, content delivery network, or some, there's like 30 AWS services that could probably do this for you. But you would publish the audio from your record player out to the cloud, and then you could tell your skill to play everywhere, I think. Still working through this in my head. This is all Jeff's opinion, remember?
This is Jeff's trying to architect this out.
Right. But you would have to blast it out of your house and bring it back. I think that's the biggest catch. And then I think once you've enabled the audio player, you should be able to play that everywhere.
I love this idea as like a smart home thing, because I have records too. So we got a 3-person multiple room audio shouldn't be supported. Yeah, we're not quite sure about that.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think that it is supported. I was just trying to think of a way where you might be able to do that.
But yeah, you'd have to work it.
Okay. So Aztec, sorry, I don't have a great answer for you.
Justin
Brian
Francis
Charles
says
also wondered if progressive response would potentially help you with the delays that you get from LLM. Sadly, and this was a major criticism of progressive responses from me when it came out, was that it doesn't actually extend your timeline. So progressive responses, and Amanda, I don't know if you've heard of these or played with these yet, but progressive responses are a way to send hold on, I'm still looking.
Yeah, it says a thing that says I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a
I'm
way
thinking about that. Yeah,
like, hey, I need a couple more seconds, but it doesn't extend your 8-second response. So you still have to respond in 8 seconds. But if it's taking the full 8, you could send something at 2 that says I'm still looking or whatever, to let it know that, like, hey, we're still doing something here.
It's surprising how long 8 seconds can feel if it's not saying anything, and you're like, did it break? So
yeah,
it's nice to have that little.
Yeah,
I'm working on it.
The first time I realized how the brain processes time, I was working on Windows Phone stuff. This was many, many years ago. And I was building a sample that demonstrated how you could make the phone vibrate, right? Haptic response kind of stuff. And I decided I wanted to make a phone vibrate for 2 seconds. I thought that was an appropriate amount of time to get someone's attention. And so I put my phone in my pocket, I sent the notification to the phone, and it vibrated for 2 seconds. I will tell you that 2 seconds is long enough for your body to realize the phone has vibrated, for you to reach into your pocket, pull it out, look at it, and say, what is wrong with my phone? Why is it vibrating so long? That's 2 seconds.
Long time.
And so I had to really back down how long I thought vibration should be, because 2 seconds seemed like a totally reasonable amount of time until I experienced my phone vibrating for that long. And it's too long, for sure. So 8 seconds is an eternity.
It's a long time to wait for it to talk back to you.
Yeah,
I wanted to shout out Jonathan on YouTube. Adventure. Yeah, Adventure is awesome. It's a classic. I actually checked. Somebody did port it to Alexa. So if you want to try playing Colossal Cave on Adventure on Alexa, you can. I haven't tried this port out. I have tried a couple of the ports of classic interactive fictions. There's a port for 905, which is a classic. Well, and I say classic, I don't mean 1970s classic. I mean early 2000s classic. So there's actually a pretty good wealth of what I would call like golden era interactive fiction that people have moved to Alexa. And if anybody's enthusiastic about that stuff as I am, hit me up on the Slack. I'll talk about it for hours. I don't know. It's very in the weeds.
She will definitely talk to you about it for hours, though. That's for sure. Every time this topic comes up, I just see her light up. So I know there's so much more to talk about there.
I think we're going to talk about it next week when Chris comes on, because I know he's got some stuff to share as far as like demos and stuff that they're working on in games. So
for my own knowledge, when we talk about Adventure, I think of the Atari game. Is that what we're talking about, or is there?
No, well, the Colossal Cave Adventure is the text-based version.
Okay.
So it's like Zork, only older. So it's a similar kind of vibe. I think Zork is the one most people are familiar with. I still have a floppy disk of Zork.
Nice. Do you have a floppy drive?
one of the 5.5s, like one of the big ones.
But do you still have a floppy drive to put it in?
Yeah, I do. On my Commodore 64.
That's impressive. I just realized the other day my son was he had found a CD in my office. It was like an audio, like I think it was like Counting Crows or something from the 90s. And he goes, Can we play this somewhere? And I was like, buddy, I don't think we can. I don't think I have a single disc drive in my house anymore.
I have a combination record, CD, MP3, radio.
Nice.
That plays all the old stuff in case I need to play a CD.
My wife reminded me that we have an old boombox. It's not that old. It's probably 12 years old, but we have an old like boombox, right? Like self-contained that has a CD player in it. But I'd have to go find batteries for it or whatever. O'Brien Tarbox says the Xbox still has CD, DVD capabilities.
There you go.
That's true.
You've got an Xbox.
I have no shortage of consoles in this house, as Brian probably is aware. Whew.
I think you had a question further up as well.
Yeah,
go ahead. You want to take that?
Well, Brian's question was around feedback options. So this is a feature request. And Brian, if you haven't added this to user voice, let's have Jeff do another commercial.
User voice.
User voice. It's not just for dinner. No. So user voice is a place that we've designated specifically for all of you when you have feature requests. So if there's a favorite LLM and you really want to be able to use that, add it to user voice. If you have feedback about feedback, like Brian just provided, and you have ideas on how we might implement things or add capabilities to Alexa, user voice is the place to do that. So you'll find that there are already hundreds of things there. And the product team uses that as an input for deciding what their roadmap is going to look like in the future. So make sure if you have ideas, anytime something comes to mind, like, it'd actually be cool if I could do this. It'd be cool if I could Bluetooth my device to other things or play my record player across all my devices. All of those things are fair game. Now, the thing that I want to qualify, though, is that it's not there to make promises. So just because you make a request doesn't mean like 3 months from now that feature is going to launch. They have a very long backlog of things that they're working on, not only for future-looking features, but also bugs and tweaks that we can make to things that already exist. So, but if you don't say anything, there's no way it can be on the backlog at all. So it's always worthwhile. If you have ideas, make sure you include them. And that's my commercial about user voice. So as we get into this, Brian's comment specifically is, I'd love to say, if you have a comment or suggestion for the author of this skill, please say my feedback is, and then provide your feedback. And it could use something like the search query slot or something like that. And Brian said, I wonder if I could do that with the general intent, which I think he means the search query slot when he's talking about that. But it would also be nice as you're exiting a skill to be able to say, I have feedback, or maybe even as part of the Alexa engine, right? Not part of your skill specifically, but as part of the Alexa engine when your skill exits, maybe from time to time, Alexa says, hey, would you like to leave feedback about this skill or something like that? So that we are capturing more feedback in the form of reviews that can go on your skills store page. Oh, that reminds me. I don't think we talked about this. I don't know that everybody has even noticed it yet. But I'm gonna bring up my developer console because I think this is too cool. There was a feature request that I made last fall, and oh my gosh, come on! The feature has gone to production.
Oh, that's great!
And I am so pumped that this exists. So let me. It's so minor, and some of you are gonna be like, "Really, Jeff? That's the big deal?" But I think this is a super awesome thing. This just makes life a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is share my screen.
Chat asking, does anyone have a working VCR? Yes, I do.
And
I have a huge VHS collection I'm trying to digitize right now, but I'm very slow. Oh, echo,
Amanda,
echo.
Can you see my screen?
But you may want to turn off your audio input source so we don't echo. Okay, that seems working now.
Okay. So here you can see that I have a list of a bunch of skills that I've worked on over time, and they're all in dev, right? These are all in development features or skills. But if I scroll down here, I'm going to find one that's in production. This one is live. This is my Star Wars databank skill. There's a new link right here that lets you go directly to the skill store for your skill. The way that this worked before is that if you wanted to find your skill in the store, you had to go in and search for it. There wasn't any place where you could find the link directly to your skill. So you had to go into the store, you had to search for it, and then once you found it, you could capture that link and use it on your website or whatever. I thought this was kind of awesome because it's in the place where you're already looking at your skill. And so now you can see, we've got reviews and descriptions and all the other stuff that's here. But I thought that was just a super, super awesome way to make this easy to find. And so you'll find next to all of your live skills that there's now an Alexa Skill Store link for all of your skills. So I thought that was kind of a cool little addition.
Very nice. I just checked it out on the store just to see how it looks. Hey, everybody, review Jeff's skill. It's only got one review, which
it
of
only
course
has
is
one
5
review.
stars because
it's not widely used, but it was fun to build for sure.
Oh, scrolling back in the chat, just trying to see what everybody else is chatting about. Yeah, a lot of chats about VCRs. Yeah, I was trying to digitize I have like 2 huge boxes full of VHS, mostly cartoons, because I recorded a lot of cartoons off the TV when I was a kid, Ninja Turtles, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So,
nice.
I gotta work on digitizing those Transformers. You might be able to see I have a lot of Transformers. I don't know, it's kind of hard to see compared to Jeff's.
Transformers are awesome. Who's your favorite Transformer?
I'm a big Tarantulas fan. I didn't even know if you know who that is. I
That's a
also really
deep
like.
cut.
I
No,
also
I
really like
remember
Shockwave.
Tarantulas for sure, but that's a deep cut. That's not like Optimus Prime or Starscream.
I like Starscream. Starscream's pretty cool. But no, it's a deep cut. I know. I also like Shockwave. He's up there.
Shockwave's good.
He still works.
Was Shockwave the one that would turned into the boombox?
No, he turns into a gun.
A gun.
He shoots lasers.
All right.
Soundwave is the boombox. Yeah, thank you.
Soundwave. That's right. Okay.
Soundwave is the boombox. Soundwave's great. I have a Soundwave somewhere. I don't know.
Well, Habuma has a very old MacBook Pro that still works and has a CD DVD drive in it.
Oh my god,
that's impressive. Those MacBooks were like this thick.
I need like a retro computer because I still have a lot of old games that are like on CD-ROM that I don't have a computer that runs that anymore. I don't know how you even get one of those. I still have like Neverwinter.
I actually have it's collecting dust right now in a cabinet, but I have a CD DVD RW external drive that I could plug into anything, and that would allow me to play any games off of a disc, but it also lets me write any discs, Blu-rays, whatever. And so I only use that from time to time, but just buying that as an external peripheral for your existing machine probably would solve that problem.
Oh. Robot X asks, can I get my skills in space? We actually had a guest on that talked about skills in space. That's an actual question. Yep. The answer is a little more complicated than you might think. A lot of latency in space.
A lot of latency.
But if you happen to be in space, we have had Alexa in space.
Let's see. Yeah, RoboTX5 says there's emulators for almost everything. There are, Amanda, I don't know where you stand on that, but there are a lot of very traditionalists that don't believe in emulation. I am not one of those people. I have a Raspberry Pi in my basement with 13,000 games on it and play most of them.
Necessary for preservation is my fundamental feeling about it, because it's otherwise a lot of these digital artifacts will get lost over time unless we find some way to preserve them. Ultimately, even things like digitizing your VHSs just don't last forever. The magnets start to wear out on them, and then they, if I pop in a VHS from before I was born and throw in the VCR, it might still work, but it might not work as good as it did when it was first, learned. So,
I wonder if there's going to be a time where we encounter bit rot, where like the digital files we have are no longer supported, or I don't know. It feels like everything has converged onto the computer, right? And so maybe that won't be an issue. But even like old file formats and stuff, it's very possible that isn't supported on Windows 30 or whatever.
It's a real concern. And particularly as somebody who's interested in classic video games, preservation is really challenging. We just had, the entire 3DS store close. You can't buy digital games on this anymore.
Yeah.
It's done. I got as many as I could before it shut down, but there is somebody out there that downloaded the entire store, so good on them.
Wow. When I have as part of so I use what is it called? Why am I forgetting what this is called? The emulation service that runs on a Raspberry Pi. Is it Pi? It's not Picade.
Can't remember. Don't know.
I don't know why this is leaving my memory entirely. It's not MAME, Gavin. It's anyway, it doesn't matter. In there, it has RetroPie. That's what I was thinking of, Abuma. Thank you. So on RetroPie, they have lots and lots of not only like old Game Boy games, but they also have a lot of the DS games as well. Yeah. So that says to me that there is an emulator and that a lot of the ROMs must be in circulation.
There is. It's how to put it, legally gray area to discuss the piracy of games, and we probably shouldn't enforce that sort of thing. I bought everything on my DS legally. I didn't hack it. I just went on the store and bought all that stuff that was on sale before it died.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the challenges, especially, like I'm not a proponent of piracy per se, but if it's not purchasable anywhere in any format,
that's the challenge.
Yeah. Like, well, that was like my favorite game. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah. Localized Mother 3. What else we got in chat? Another approach to getting skill feedback would be offer to send a link feedback form to their phone when not requiring any changes to Alexa team. You mean user voice it? put it in user voice if you've got skill feedback
Yeah.
We can chat about it too later.
Yeah, and Brian's right though. Like, we don't need to know what the user's cell phone number is. We don't need to send the message to them. The Alexa service could do that.
+1 read look less 1 of 3. Thank you. Thank you. That's a deep cut, but not really. Come on.
All right, we have about 15 minutes left. What other questions can we answer for all of you?
Never shared, and a fond recollection of games that never shared, never licensed. Yeah, it happens. I'm a full proponent of any kind of digital preservation efforts. I think it's just really important to save our history of art and creation. We'll talk more about games next week.
Ooh, Brian wants to know if we would ever do an in-person Alexa Live.
We don't have any news about that right now.
No. No Alexa Live news yet. I think the idea of a live one is appealing. The trick is that you can only fit so many people in a room, and the cost to have people in a room is expensive. So the trade-off that you have to make versus reaching a much broader audience online, that can be tricky. Obviously not ruling it out, but it's definitely a more challenging situation because it has to be somewhere, probably Seattle if you were going to do something like that. Data-driven skills says, why is my APL background not showing on my Alexa Show 8? I don't have a good answer for you on that, but one of the things that I would recommend, and hopefully we can have you dig into this, is in the developer console itself. You have the ability to change what device it's emulating when you're actually building your skill. And so I would recommend, maybe you've already done this, data-driven skills, but my recommendation always is go first to the console, set the device type. I can show this again since we've already done some screen sharing today.
Yeah.
So if I go into this skill that I've been working on, and we look at this in testing, and I say something like,
voice development.
I can kind of hear her. Yeah.
Okay, so in here, you can see that in this dropdown, I have all of these different options. And so whether I'm looking at mobile devices or hub devices, you can tell by the screen sizes here which one it is. I think the 8 is the medium, which is the default. But I would play with these and see what happens to your graphics depending on the size. It could also be that you have some kind of, I call it a media query, but it's along those lines of like, there's an if statement basically in your APL that says, while this is true, then do this stuff. While this is true, do this stuff. And it's usually based on things like screen dimensions. So it's possible you may have something like that in your APL that would say, well, while the screen is bigger than or smaller than these dimensions, show the background. But in fact, your screen that you're looking at is not those dimensions or something along those lines. So it's hard to say without looking at your APL, but that's my instinct on that.
We do have an APL chat on the Slack too, if you want to show up and post code and ask questions there. If you have like a deeper code question to ask. Jeff, when are you streaming next?
Great question. I did not go live this morning, although I was planning on it. The hang up that I have right now is that I'm in this weird limbo. Limbo is the word I was looking for. So internally, we are working on getting this thing to a place where it might be publishable. And so that means some beta testing. And so I've got some users internally that are doing it. And eventually I'll start rolling this beta testing out more broadly. But because it's in beta testing, I'm not really motivated to make changes right now because I wanted to keep working for the people that are beta testing. So I've kind of just put the development on hold. I'm working on content, but there is nothing I can imagine that would be more boring than watching me edit a spreadsheet during a live stream. So because of that, I have not been going live, or at least I didn't go live this morning. So I will keep you posted on that. I want to keep doing live coding, but I'm in this weird, like, valley right now between, hey, we're good, we're going to go live and publish this thing, and let's add new features. So that's why I haven't been on recently.
I didn't want to miss Chuck's question on YouTube too, although it's more like a comment. Suggestion for a tech talk. What do some developers do to advertise? What channels are more successful than others? Well, we can't say like, hey, we're definitely doing that. We'll take a note of that suggestion on our end because, we plan the tech talks and everything. So thank you. Great suggestion.
Our team behind the scenes is always looking for new topics and ideas. So that's a good one.
Thank you. Next question. Prisoner 4044 asks, is either APL or APLA supported on all Alexa devices?
So that's a tricky, loaded question. We have to, internally, we use the term, is it EFD, Echo Family Device, where it's actually an Amazon-produced Echo device. My understanding is that, yes, you can send APLA to any device. You can't send APL to any device because if you send it to an Echo Dot, it would fail. So you still have to have some conditional logic there for that specific case. But in general, yes, the Echo family of devices should be able to support any kind of APL that you're sending as long as it's appropriate for the device. Where you get caught up and where it's a substantial number. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I know it's a reasonable enough percentage of devices that are made by third parties.
Right, non-Echo devices.
That have Alexa built in. A good example is, let me see if I can open this.
Like if it's in your car, for example.
Right. But I have, this is a really nice set of Bose headphones. These have Alexa built into them.
My TV does too, but it's not an Echo family. It's not a Fire TV. It's just
this one doesn't qualify. Things like Sonos soundbars and stuff like that don't qualify. And so the risk you take is that if they haven't implemented or solved that problem for their devices, then you'd be alienating folks because you won't know. You do not get that kind of granular understanding of what the device you're sending a message to is. All you know is whether or not it supports APL. That's really the only condition that you get. So that is that's a challenge. I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's I feel like you're better off playing it safe. All right. So another good question that came in here was, can you make a phone call in Skill yet? The answer is yes, but with a big condition, a big qualifier. This has been around for a little while. It may still be in developer preview, but I think it's even beyond that.
I know we were talking about it internally, so yeah.
The catch being is that you have to be an Amazon Chime Enterprise customer because it uses Chime behind the scenes. And so the only reason that you're not going to go do it today is it's probably cost prohibitive. I don't think that you would want to stand up an entire Amazon Chime Enterprise AWS service just so that users could make phone calls in a Skill. At least maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. I think it is more designed today for folks that have an enterprise Amazon Chime account and they're like, oh, awesome, this would be a great way to tie into the things that we're already doing with Chime. But technically, I am answering your question. Yes, you could do that. But Chime is the requirement behind the scenes. So I know it's kind of a disappointing answer, but that is where we stand today. Habuma says he's pretty sure APLA will work on any device. He's 99.999% sure. That's 3 nines. That's pretty confident. But APL definitely not. APL only works on devices with screens.
I want to be sure that could use one or the other. Yeah, APLA is probably the way to go.
Brian Tarbox also asked, as we're running out of time here, could I get feedback on a show device by displaying an edit text element? This is where someone could type something into a box. That seems reasonable to me. I haven't seen that done, but I haven't seen the edit text control used a ton anyway. The catch would be is that it wouldn't be feeding into, obviously, the traditional feedback system. These wouldn't show up as reviews in your Skill in the store.
Yeah.
But if you're just looking for people to provide feedback, yeah, you could use the edit text box. Have people type something in, hit send. That would be stored. Like you could capture that in your code, send it to a database, review it later. Yeah,
there's some rules about that. You're not allowed to say, please rate this skill 5 stars. Right? There's some certification rules around collecting feedback.
Totally. All right, we've gotten to the bottom of the list.
Yeah, I think so. I see that our chat has helpfully chimed in with the contact us case. Yeah, if you're really stuck on something in your code, I know I've used contact us and I work here, but I was just like, why doesn't this work? Let's try contact us.
Yeah,
they will actually help you out sometimes, especially if it's something that's like easy to miss, because it can happen to all of us.
For sure. And actually, let's take a second and talk about that, because there are a few ways that not everyone is aware of that you can use to talk with Amazon about your skill. So contact us is I need help on policy or with a code issue or something.
Thanks for telling me.
Alexa, stop. Or something like I need support, right? But there's also, hey, I wonder if I could build a skill that does this. I wish I could get the certification team to tell me that like my idea is fine or that I could do that. We actually have that. So they were on last week. It's the Skill Insights team. They have an email address. It's right here on the screen for you. If you want to start a conversation with them about, hey, I have an idea. What do you think with this past certification? What kind of hurdles would I run into? Are there any concerns that you may have about this? Or, hey, I'm looking for ways to make my skill better or attract more users or whatever. What would you recommend? This is the team that provides all of the skill quality coach recommendations that you may receive in your email or in the developer console, but they're a great team. And then if you want to talk to the certification team directly, you can use this email address. This team will, again, very focused on certification issues, but I would capture both of these email addresses because they are ways to reach out to Amazon directly and get some of the answers that you're looking for. And if you send it to one and it really is meant for the other, they know of each other and they can pass you between the two. But my recommendation generally is start with contact us. And if you don't find what you're looking for, then try to reach out to one of these teams and say, hey, I've already tried this. I have a ticket, but maybe escalate it through one of them and see if they can't give you more help. But those two email addresses should be in your address book. They should be things that you reach out from time to time. And the fact that they keep asking me to show their email addresses suggests they don't have enough attention yet. So
they want to hear from you.
Yeah, they definitely want
Bother
to.
them.
Okay. As we wrap up here, Prisoner 4044 said, if we're developing a skill and have tested it in the console, we should be able to test it with a device using the same account, correct? Yes, that is correct. And that's something that I always give new developers guidance on, is that whatever you would sign into your device with, your Amazon account, usually like your Amazon
use that as your
shopping
developer account.
That should be your developer account credentials also.
Mm-hmm.
Highly, highly recommended. If you do not have that set up, or maybe like it's too late for you, you've already set up a separate developer account and then you have all your devices set up on your personal email, there is a way in the developer console. We can, we're going to run a little late here, but I can show this.
We got time.
Let me share my screen for a third time. We do a lot of screen sharing on these Q&A sessions.
That's good though.
So,
I like the screen share.
Let me type in my code. So if I go to developer.amazon.com, one of the things you can do on this screen, there is a settings. Nope, I lied. You're going to go to here and choose settings. This is the settings for your entire developer account. I don't know why that just happened, but we'll try that again. Maybe
there's a problem with it right now.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
So this is what you're supposed to see when you come to settings. Now, this is your entire developer account, not just Alexa stuff. So keep that in mind. But in here, all you need to do is go to settings and then choose user permissions. And in user permissions, you can add additional users to your account that are other developer accounts. So you could add another developer's account to this. The catch with this, and the extreme warning that I want to give you, is that when you add someone else, they have access to everything in your developer account. I don't know about like these kinds of things, tax, identity, payments, and benefits, but they definitely have the ability to go in and edit, delete, change, modify your skills as much as they would like. So I really only recommend doing this with other people that you trust, or with yourself, as Prisoner was asking, you could add your other account here, and then that would allow your personal account to have access to all of your skills that you're developing in your developer account. So that is a way around this. Obviously, you trust yourself not to destroy things. So that is how you can do that if you need to pair those accounts together. Okay, with that, we've got to wrap things up. We are right at time. Thank you guys all for the discussion and the questions and the conversation. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week with the games conversation. I'm always so excited to do those. And y'all welcome back next time we see you. Oh, and don't forget Tech Talk tomorrow.
Yes. We will see you all very, very soon. Take care and have a great day. Bye, everyone.